where you are, Expert Talk with me, Tigo. And today, as always, we bring in experts that know a little bit more than Tigo does. Yeah, okay, stop looking at me. A lot more than Tigo does about business, about growing, about living your dream. And today is no different. Today is no different. Today we have somebody really, really special. We brought in Mr. Aaron Scott Young. This is a man who believes that you should build a business, not just something that you work at, and it's not really a business. You're working for yourself and working a glorified job. Mr. Aaron Scott Young is here, and we're going to hang out with him.
Expert Talk is brought to you in part by PodNation TV, the podcast to broadcast network.
Expert Talk is produced and distributed by Melrose 11 LLC. Lights, cameras, take action with Melrose 11.
So good to be with you. It's a lot's happening, but right now, the only thing that matters is this conversation. So it's so good to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thanks for coming on, man. I know that, it was kind of a last minute thing and you said yes, and we totally appreciate that you would come out and hang out with us because you're definitely a trailblazer we need to talk to.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I'm all yours, my friend, all yours. And thanks for asking me. And obviously, I must not be too busy if I can do things last minute.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have to tell you something funny before we get into this. My business partner, Ann, was recently at one of your events, and we're going to get into that. But she called me up and she said they're from Laughlin. Well, see, I'm in Nevada, and there's a town here called Laughlin.
Laughlin, yeah, Laughlin. Right.
So I thought you owned a casino or something. I didn't know what the heck you did. I'm just telling you. I didn't know it was Laughlin and Associates or Laughlin,
A lot of people get confused. A lot of people do.
So let's talk about this. You've been an entrepreneur for 30 plus years of your life. So basically you started when you were what, 2-3 years old?
No, thank you very much for that. No, I was 19. I had 19 when I had my first business that had employees, and sold that business when I was about 22. So I started the second recycling business in Portland, Oregon. Portland's a very green city anyway. So when I was 19, I started this recycling business. I met a super cute girl, wanted to marry her, didn't think she'd want to be married to a garbage man. So I sold the recycling business, took the money in middle of 86, and started one of the very first cellular phone companies, meaning sellers of cellular phones in the Northwest. Built that up, closed part of it when the industry changed, sold the shop and all the equipment, which is still there, interestingly enough, all these years later. Wow. In 1992, 93, took my only job I've ever had, which was the vice president of sales. I was 29 years old. And I was vice president of a NASDAQ traded multinational, 350 offices around the world. They made me their VP of sales, which at the time I thought seemed logical, but now I look back and think, what the heck were they thinking? That's insane. I would never put a 29-year-old in charge of my sales for a NASDAQ company.
Well, you had to be a really creative, talented guy at 29 years old.
Well, we did manage to almost quadruple sales for the 3.5 years I stayed there. And then
you were the right pick.
Yeah, and I made enough money in the stock that when I left there in 96, I started to buy companies and sell companies, and then learned more about taking things I'd learned from my little adventures and applying them. And a really smart guy that I met he's very successful in another business now, but he was a nuclear fuel engineer, and he with a doctorate in nuclear fuel creation, and he worked for NASA. And he said to me one time, we were having a funny talk about lots of stuff, And he said SAR. And I said, what does that mean? He said SRA. And I said, what is that? And he said, same rules apply. The same rules that apply in parenting, apply in entrepreneurship, apply in your spirituality and your healthcare.
Wow.
Whatever works, you're going to see that repeated over and over again. And
okay, so I got to stop you for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that's really important. And I know there's a lot of people out there. I'm asking the man, come on, give me a second. I know you're going, wait a minute, what? So I got to ask you, because there are people that have not started their entrepreneurship journey. They have not stepped out there, or maybe they have because we're kind of coming through COVID. I'm not going to say it's over. I don't believe it, but we're coming through it and learning how to adjust with it. Like kind of bad, winter storm in Chicago. We just figure out how to get through it. But they started something maybe while they were off, while the businesses were shut down, and now they're going back to work. And the reason why they're not sticking with it or they're not taking that journey is because they don't believe the same rules apply. They don't believe that these things connect. So can you just kind of expound on that? How does being an entrepreneur, being in business, also apply in their regular life?
Well, I don't know if the answer that's coming to my mind is really the specific kind of answer you're looking for, but I do want to say this. Many people that start a business and they start to grow it and they start to hire people, they get this belief that the employees are going to steal their secret sauce. Mm-hmm. And they get real fearful of that. And I tell them all the time, as a matter of fact, I talked to your partner, Ann, about this. I said, look at the people that come to work for you who are better at you at sales, or better than you at marketing, or better at you at IT, or better at you at something. That's why you hired them, because they're better than you, right? In that way. The very fact that they came to work for you is enough reason to not fear they're going to steal from you. And now, put a pin in that. You said there are people during COVID who worked from home and found that they could do a side hustle because they had time, they had discretionary time. Yep. The reason people will give it up going back to work is out of fear. They're afraid to try to make the payroll every month. They're afraid to know how to do the marketing. They're afraid when they've got a security blanket or a lifeline like a salary, then they take a risk on doing some side deals.
Okay, Aaron, I've got to ask you, because you were just talking about people they need a W-2. They're afraid. We talk about false evidence appearing real all the time here, and y'all know I do. Don't even sit there and say I don't. I do. We talk about that all the time. And let's talk about, what does that mean? Where is the security blanket when you step out there on your own? How do you do that safely?
Well, safely, okay, there's three keys to becoming successful in business that I've discovered. One is you have to have a good idea. If your idea sucks, it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter. If your idea is stupid, it's not going to work. Okay.
This man.
and so I see things all the time where people are very dedicated to an idea that is a complete and utter fool's errand, but they're going to pursue it into poverty, and that's okay. They will learn their lesson and they'll come back smarter. So one is, you've got to have an idea that the market has an interest in what you're going to do, right? You've got to have that. Second thing is, you got to have enough money to survive so you don't have to be afraid. You've got to have time, runway, to get your plane up off the ground. So the second one is, you've got to have adequate funding. It doesn't have to even be a lot of money. It depends on your lifestyle, right? If you don't mind going small for a while to let all the revenue go to the baby, to the airplane, you will get it off the ground. And the point one on that one or 2.1 is don't eat all the money that you make either. You've got to keep some cash reserves, right? So you have money to adjust. So first one is, you've got to have an idea the market has an interest in. You've got to have adequate funding, and you need to have a plan. You need to have some awareness of how to operate a business, because as Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth many years ago, most people that start a business are great technicians. They know how to change oil in a car. They know how to write code. They know how to mow lawns. They know something, but they have no idea how to run a business, which is different than the product or service delivery to the customer. That there's a difference, and most people don't understand that. So if you've got a decent idea and you've got adequate funding to let it grow, and you have you don't have to like wander around in the woods blind, banging into every tree and falling down every cliff, right? If you have a plan that's based in reality, you need to learn it from somebody. You could learn it from somebody like me, or from Warren Buffett, or from Bill Ackman, or from Michael Gerber, or anybody else. There's a ton of people you can learn from, but you need to follow some rules so you don't have to learn it all yourself through your own pain. You know, if you do those things, you can be less afraid, but there is no doubt being entrepreneurial is not for the vast majority of people, and it is not for the faint of heart. No matter how much they want it or think it's right, it's a constant risk. You're forever at risk.
Yeah.
And even when you
Definitely.
think you've made it, you know, we went through the market crash 08, 09, right? Well,
Yeah.
it didn't catch up to my company till 2010. And it was like
Wow.
somebody turned off the spigot and millions of dollars disappeared out of cash flow. Millions of dollars. Just like, what happened?
Wow.
Well, we work with small businesses. They all went out of business, which meant we had no cash flow. So we looked at all of our team and we said, so we were doing great. My partner and I, we were kicking butt. We were living in beautiful homes. I'd built a great big custom home. Just, I mean, deluxe, like I never even could have imagined growing up. And he lived in a beautiful home also in up on a golf course. Anyway, long story short is the market crash happened. We looked at our staff. We knew how long it had taken us to build this great team. We knew from other bubbles, this bubble would pass. This struggle would pass. So what did we do? We opted to take a 75% pay cut because we are far and away the most highly paid people in the company.
Right.
And we both short sold our homes, moved into rentals, but we never fired any employees.
Wow.
So part of being a good entrepreneur is being a steward of the business. It's not just self-serving, as they would say to you on the news. That's crap. Most business owners I know will be the very last person paid. They'll pay all their team before they pay themselves. And if you can't live that way, then you probably shouldn't do it. You shouldn't be, everything else has got to be up for grabs. If the golden goose, or I should say the goose that lays the golden eggs, if it's at jeopardy for a minute, like a bubble pops, you've got to make sure that you feed the goose and you wait for your turn to eat. That's what
and
an
a lot of people are
entrepreneur
going
does.
through that right now. I mean, especially coming out of COVID, you know, they learned the hard way because, you know, especially in America. I mean, people are seeing this all over the world, but especially in America, a lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And for almost a year and a half, there really wasn't a paycheck. I mean, it was a little version of that. And a lot of the small businesses, they don't live much better than paycheck to paycheck, trying to get through it. You know, some of them don't even have paychecks. They're just holding on.
People would be surprised to know, according to the last census, only 4% of business owners, only 4% of the 22 million people that said they owned a business or were self-employed, only 4% only break $1 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
96% don't get to 1 million. And we hear about these unicorns. We hear about Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whatever. We hear about somebody who just sold their nap